Softly they float, where do they go? They cover the ground without a sound. They fall from the sky before your eyes. Those blankets of white, bright in the night. They seem to say, our love is here to stay. We'll be cozy and warm until summer flowers bloom. Here in our midst, we're surely blessed. We're over the heat, gee, ain't life sweet? Drifting on air without a care. They cover the ground without a sound. Just as those snowflakes fall from the gloom, I will always remember this day here with you. Pretty purple snowflakes, pretty purple snowflakes, pretty purple snowflakes, pretty purple snowflakes, snowflakes. Snowflakes, snowflakes are falling, hey, pretty purple snowflakes, 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 snowflakes.
The shortest day and longest night approach, marking the passage of time and changing of the season. May we find comfort in the undeniable rhythm and by our connection and commitment to each other. Come, let us worship together.
Good morning, everyone. Yay, and welcome to All Souls Church. Welcome to a community where our search for spirituality and our passion for justice meet and mingle, where our heads and our hearts are divided no more, where reverence for the earth and the belief in the dignity of every person inform our ethics, where music is an expression of our joy, prayer is a sign of our faith, and acts of justice are a symbol of our hope. My name is Jana Owens, and I am the worship associate today. My pronouns are she and her. This morning, we'd like to extend a special greeting to those who are joining us for the very first time, and also to those who've continued to join us weekly. For those who are here in the building, you can access the order of service by clicking on a QR code that should be on the back of the pew that's just in front of you. And for those who are on Zoom, there's a link to the order of service in the chat window. For those who would strongly prefer a printed order of service, those who are here, we do have a few of those available. Now, our building has been closed, as everybody knows, but our church programs, they never stopped. And the best way to know what's going on at All Souls is through our weekly email bulletin. If you don't currently receive that, there is a link to sign up for it in the chat window on Zoom, and you can also sign up on the All Souls website. Now, it is important that we recognize the people who lived on the land where our church now stands. The closest village was the Nacotchtank, from which the name Anacostia is derived. They were, in turn, part of the Piscataway group of the First Nations peoples on this land. We acknowledge that Indigenous peoples were here before us. They're here with us now and will continue to be with us as we move to the future. So let's please take a brief moment of silence to reflect on whose land we each reside here in the United States and also everywhere on our planet Earth. Thank you. And now let's have our fun time of beholding one another, both in person and virtually. If you are here in the sanctuary, I invite you to move around and greet others. You can, you can just do this toward each other. You can elbow bump. You can do a nice little bow toward others. And if you are on Zoom, please go through the chat, through the gallery view, and wave at each other, and you can text each other. Let's take some time to greet each other now.
Gorgeous. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, greetings, All Souls. I'm Reverend Kathleen Rollens, and serving as your interim senior minister, it is a joy to behold all of you today. There's a lot happening, but before I tell you about all the events and activities planned, I also want to tell you that your executive director, Tracy Hughes Trotter, and I are aware of the rising cases of COVID across the country and also in this area. So, friends, we are actively consulting with our COVID advisory team, and we'll be speaking with our staff and others directly involved in creating worship services about whether or not we should change our plans for the 10 p.m. indoor Christmas Eve service. So please stay alert for a standalone email blast from us if we feel that circumstances would necessitate moving to online. That is not our hope, and that is not our wish, of course. But we have also always prioritized your safety, especially for those most vulnerable among us. And I do want to encourage, particularly those of you who are online right now, to stay afterwards for coffee hour. Gary Penn will be hosting coffee hour, and we want to hear from you about your feelings and thoughts given the recent rise of COVID cases in the area. Assuming that we do go forward with our plans, here's a few things that you should know about this week. Caroling will be happening tomorrow. That's December 20th at 6:30 p.m. Gather at the terrace and just be ready. You will be masked and distanced, but we do anticipate caroling tomorrow. The Christmas pageant, the highly anticipated Christmas pageant, it will continue, rain or shine, because it's going to be held outdoors at 4 p.m. on Christmas Eve. But it will not be broadcast live, just too complicated to do that. That's going to be really fun, so please do consider joining us for the 4 p.m. Our current plans for the 10 p.m. service is both in person and on Zoom, but as I said earlier, we will send out an email blast with any updates as soon as we have checked with our consultants. And remember that the next 2 Sundays, December 26th and January 2nd, will be virtual only, same time, 10:30. So those are going to be 2 wonderful services as well. So after all this anxiety, you might want to spend some time with Carol Collins for doing some yoga nidra on December 21st. Or you might also want to visit or Sandra Duvall's class on the power of ritual. That was offered last year. It was really popular and very, very meaningful. That's 2 sessions, but the first one's December 23rd. You can find all of that in the e-newsletter. So let's take a deep breath. Turn our hearts and minds to a few congregational celebrations and concerns. First, today we celebrate the 40th anniversary of John and Esther Strongman, who were married in this very sanctuary, yes, December 18th by Reverend David Eaton. Can we give it up for John and Esther right now? I think it was Esther that wrote, and they said it wouldn't last. Not at all, not a chance. We wish you many, many more years of happiness. You know, another cause for celebration is that our courtyard has been restored. And if you haven't had a chance to look at it, do take a peek. It's absolutely gorgeous. And, you know, it was torn up for quite some time, and that was somewhat traumatic, but it looks beautiful. Please don't walk on the grass, though. It's brand new sod, and it needs some time to root. So yay on that. Wanted to let you know that the celebration of life for Peter Saylor will be held on Sunday, January 16th at 2 p.m. This is a Zoom memorial, and the link for that service will be on the All Souls homepage calendar closer to the date. Wanted to hold in our hearts and minds a family among us who wish to remain unnamed, but whom we do hold in our hearts. We're celebrating a 6-month cancer-free diagnosis. And we also send healing thoughts to this family's 2 children who recently contracted COVID and who are recovering, fortunately, from COVID. But we pray for a complete recovery and strength for this family. Another deep breath. Where is it in our week that we actually get to sit next to beloved community and breathe together and center down? This is such a time. O Spirit of life, in this hemisphere of our planet, we are quickly approaching the Earth's shortest day, longest night. It's a time for silence, for reflection, for holding one another in the dark. Hold us, O Spirit of life, as we find the strength to endure this long season of thwarted hopes, of shifting plans, of disappointments which threaten our dreams. Remind us, O Spirit of life, of the blessings we have among us right now, of the relationships which sustain us, of children who astonish us, of the love which envelops us and is available to us every moment, this very moment. Strengthen us, O Spirit of life, for the challenges ahead, and let us find a peace at the heart of these longest nights. Amen. And may it be so.
We hold in our hearts all the prayers spoken and unspoken this day. Our reading is The Solstice Teaches Us by Reverend Dr. David Breeden. The solstices teach us that darkness comes and darkness goes. The solstices teach us that light comes and light goes. The solstices teach us calmly, silently, to be calm, silent, learning. The solstices teach us as we circle the sun that everything flies. The solstices teach us to remember the dark, to remember the light, to remember time, the seasons, and love as we circle the sun. This coming Tuesday, December 21st, marks the day with the least amount of daylight in the year in the Northern Hemisphere. This occasion, the winter solstice, has been marked in different ways across the earth, with a variety of stories and explanations, rituals and celebrations. For some, the focus is more on beliefs and stories, most commonly of the death and rebirth of the sun. For some, though, its observance is tied to more tangible aspects of life. It signaled the time when food would become less available and travel and transit more difficult. It was a time to adjust expectations for the hard months ahead. In both senses, the metaphorical and the practical, recognizing the winter solstice has and does offer us a sense of grounding. The irony, of course, is that it is about change. So how can we find grounding in change? Whatever stories and meanings they associated with it, the people who have observed the winter solstice explicitly, or at least implicitly, recognize a basic fact, that it's inevitable, that change is inevitable, that the coming of winter is inevitable. The maxim that the only constant is change is attributed to the Greek philosopher it never occurred to me how to pronounce this out loud. Heraclitus. We're going to go with that. It's perhaps fitting that there isn't 100% solid evidence that he said this. He is believed to have written a book about it, but the book was destroyed and exists only in fragments. It's probably not true, but part of me does wonder if he destroyed the book simply to prove his point. Anyway, there is great truth in his statement, as well as great wisdom in finding ways to work with the inevitable rather than resisting or denying it. Indeed, I find it inspiring that so many people in different places around the globe have marked the winter solstice with fire and celebration. Even though the following months would have more daylight, in every place not near the equator would mean harsher conditions. Now, for us now in a developed city, the seasons are less disruptive of our food supply. Yet many of us do suffer from the lack of light or the discomfort of cold. And the pandemic has certainly disrupted many things, from supply chains to the comfort and safety of being indoors in any place other than our own homes. So although the circumstances may be different, we are still experiencing disruption. And I think we could all still use some more grounding. As we talk about grounding in this context, though, in relation to the winter solstice and light and darkness, we have to contend with an additional variable that matters deeply in the United States today, which is the equation of darkness with badness. What might have been a harmless reaction to the natural world in the past is today something that fuels unconscious bias and racism. And so the choice to use the solstice and references to light and darkness comes with a responsibility. That was a significant factor in my choice of today's reading. The author doesn't privilege one or another, but invites us to appreciate both and to be in gracious relationship with the natural inevitability of change. The solstices teach us to remember the dark, to remember the light, to remember time, the seasons, and love as we circle the sun. So that's one way to responsibly honor the solstice, to recognize and appreciate the value of both light and dark. It's about balance and rhythm. We'll come back to that in a bit. Another way to honor the solstice and shift unjust associations is to specifically cultivate appreciation for the darkness. I did this mostly by accident recently, but it's something I plan to do regularly with intention going forward. I was single parenting my girls, ages 3 and 6, from after school through dinner time a few weeks ago. My incredible colleague here, Dolores Miller, had given me 2 unicorn glow sticks to share with the girls at some point. Picture something about the size and shape of a straw that's pink and has a unicorn head you can stick on it. It works like a typical glow stick. You bend it to activate, and then it glows, in this case, pink, for a few hours. Well, it seemed like a fine night to get those out, and naturally the girls wanted darkness to see them better, and so we did that for a while with closed doors and lights out. Then I had an idea, which they thankfully went along with. What if we just kept the lights off for the evening? What if all of playtime and dinner was done only with glow sticks and candles, with just an occasional flashlight or small electric light when needed? I was amazed at how different everything felt. Without me even saying anything, the girls were quieter. There was a calmness to the darkness that they could feel. They still played and bounced from room to room, for sure, but it was different. Now, at a very practical level, as a parent these days, I'm always looking for things to do that take very little money or effort. So this was a great discovery. But more seriously, I'm really looking forward to having more evenings like that, where we just embrace the quiet beauty and calm intimacy of the darkness. Now, continuing on this theme, in a recent meeting with the leaders of the social justice groups, I invited folks to share a story of when they had had a particularly positive experience with the darkness. Maya Herman, a founder and leader of the Pantry for All Souls and our ESL program, talked about visiting a place called Junction Cave. This is the entrance. She says it was July in New Mexico, which means it was about 100 degrees outside and about 50 degrees inside the cave. It's an old lava tube, about 100,000 years old. So as you crawl through the cave, you're crawling under this lava field. When we sat and turned off our headlamps, I imagined all the earth and rock above us. Thought about being inside the earth. And it was the most profound darkness and silence I've ever experienced. Just total blackness. And after a few seconds of sitting very still, I started to notice my heartbeat. And after a few more seconds of stillness, realized I could hear the heartbeat of the person I was sitting next to. Really unlike any other experience I've had. Let's try this ourselves for a moment. Imagine yourself in complete darkness, in complete silence, the darkest dark and quietest quiet possible. After a few moments, you start to notice your own heartbeat. After a while longer, you realize that it's so quiet and so still that you can hear the heartbeat of the person sitting next to you. How incredible. The more I've thought about it, the more I like the heartbeat as a way of understanding the balance of light and dark. Both the contraction and release are needed for the heart to function. Our bodies, the flora and fauna all around us, we all need the cycles of light and dark. And even when there's no light at all, if we're quiet enough and still enough, we can hear the heartbeat of those around us. It's a good reminder that whether we can hear it or not, there are always heartbeats all around us. Other people, imperfect and beautiful just like us, whose lives survive on the same rhythm. Ba-bum, ba-bum, ba-bum. Light and dark, light and dark, light and dark. For so many reasons, many of us are exhausted these days. The pandemic is enough of a trial on its own, but it's exponentially worse for people with health challenges, economic challenges, children at home. And for those of us who care about our planet, there's exhaustion at still having to fight for dignity and equity. It's maddening to be organizing for some of the exact things as decades ago: voting rights without racist gerrymandering and suppression, access to safe abortion, living wages, affordable housing, an approach to public safety that actually keeps people and communities safe. Now, on one hand, in the face of these challenges, there needs to be times where we claim our power and agency, where we recognize that our beliefs and values call us to act and that what we do can have a real impact. People acknowledge that they can make a difference and they get more engaged. That's how movements grow. And on the other hand, there is a real downside to overestimating our power and capacity. Claiming power is real and important, but so is recognizing our limits to avoid sacrificing our own mental and physical health. To make concrete changes in our world, to push through the real obstacles to justice, there needs to be times that we truly pour our energy into the cause, where for some period of time we burn the midnight oil, burn the candle at both ends, or maybe just burn the whole sucker down. But then we need to rest, to celebrate what we've done, to grieve all that is undone, to let our hearts and minds and souls recover. Now, it can be difficult to do this, for sure, because there is so much to do. That's where the solstice, the changing seasons, the heartbeats of the natural world can help us. We are literally surrounded by and kept alive by rhythms. Nearly every living thing has cycles of output and rest, and bad things happen when the cycle gets disturbed. If you're not giving yourself the rest you deserve, just consider what's around you. Let go of your individual circumstances and concerns for a moment. Remember and feel that you are just like the other animals and the plants, and indeed the whole planet. There is a cycle. There is a balance. As awesome and powerful as you may be, you are not an exception to this rule. You need the rest, like every other living thing on earth. Earlier this week, our country and our world lost one of the greatest teachers and inspirations of our time, bell hooks. Yesterday, the Washington Post published a piece by Hannah Drake, a Black woman poet and activist. It was titled, "Bell Hooks Taught Us Black Women How to Resist and How to Rest." In it, Drake writes, "Through Hook's words, I came to understand that I can be tired as I continue to work against racism, but I do not have to be overwhelmed. I can rest. I do not have to choose between being Black and being a woman. I do not have to alter who I am. I can resist and not lose my humanity. I can do this work and not be bitter. I can do this work with love at the foundation." And she ends by saying, "Now it is my prayer that as a Black woman, Bell Hooks finds rest too, knowing she planted seeds that will blossom for the next generation, all rooted in love." I humbly add my prayer to hers. This new variant and others present challenges, to be sure. But humans have lived with and through enormous challenges throughout our existence. For many, the perils of a typical winter presented more of a threat than the coronavirus does to us today. So let us choose to meet these inevitable challenges, these inevitable changes, with love. Sometimes this love will be in the form of resistance, sometimes celebration, sometimes rest. All are natural and all are necessary as we continue flying around the sun.
Thank you, Reverend Keithan. Good morning, everyone. My name is Tracy Hughes Trotter. I'm the Executive Director of All Souls Church. This morning, I'd like to challenge you to commit to joy. It is a radical act of defiance, in defiance of all of the grief the world and circumstances are causing us right now. I have no doubt that coming to church for some of you, or even logging in on Zoom, was a radical and defiant act. You fought against the desire to roll over and catch a few more hours of sleep, or maybe take a little longer to ease into your day, or add one more episode to your binge watching spree on Netflix or Apple TV. I know for one, I plan to rewatch Ted Lasso because that brings me joy. If you have not seen it, I highly recommend it. You will feel joy. But the reality is that you're here. You showed up here in person. You've shown up on Zoom. Why? Because being in the community of All Souls brings you joy and comfort. Continuing to support All Souls when uncertainty abounds is an act of grace toward all the beautiful things and beings who have joined with you in worship today. We're halfway through the year, and All Souls has received less than half of its fulfilled pledges. Your financial support is so very important. So if you've not done so, and if you're able, please fulfill your pledge before the end of the year. The building is in need of significant repairs. I don't know if you all saw the email that I sent out last week, but we're still waging the war. The courtyard is beautiful. Hopefully we'll hold the water in abeyance for a bit, but there's much more that needs to be done. Your gifts to the church will ensure that it continues to be a place of comfort and solace. Giving is easy to do. If you're joining us online, check out the link in the chat, click donate on the website, or you can text ASCU to 73256. If you're here in person, you may also drop your gift in the basket at the door in the back of the sanctuary. Thank you for your generosity. I challenge you to radical acts of joy.
May you have balance with power and with rest. May you appreciate the beauty and power of the light and the beauty and power of the darkness. Go in peace and go in love. Amen.
God is inside me and everyone else that was or ever will be. I came into this world with God, and when I finally looked inside, I found it just as close as my breath is to me. Your heartbeat make my heart beat when we share love, like a blade of corn, like a honeybee, like a waterfall, all a part of me, like the color purple. Where do it come from? Now my eyes are open. Look what God has done. Takes a grain of light to make a mighty tree. Yeah, even the smallest voices can make a harmony. Like a drop of water, they keep the river high. There are miracles found like a honeybee, a where do it come from? Eyes are open. God has done. I don't think us feel old.